Hello, everybody. Sorry for, oh, we're not too late. Just a couple pointers. Joining us at the podium today is going to be Attorney General Matthew J. Plotkin, First Assistant Attorney General Lindsay Rotolo, the Director of the Office of Public Accountability and Integrity, Drew Skinner, and outgoing Director Tom Eicher. Those will be the people up here with you. At the close of the press conference, the materials that are up here and the indictment will be available online. We also have some printed materials for you that we'll try to make available to as many of you as we can. The Attorney General will take a couple of quick questions after the remarks are concluded. He'll only be taking questions from reporters, as is normal with our press conferences. Of course. Whenever we have press conferences, we limit it to reporters. It's a press conference. It's for the reporters to ask questions. We know everybody's on a tight deadline. We'll make accommodations for other questions another way. It's not appropriate for asking questions right now. We'll take a couple questions from the press, and then we're going to ask everybody to leave. This room has to get used again in a little while, so give us a couple minutes and we'll be underway. Find you a new seat. So sit at the end where there's no seat reserved.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. Joining me at the podium are First Assistant Attorney General Lindsay Rotolo, Executive Director of the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, Drew Skinner, as well as the founding and outgoing Executive Director of the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, Tom Eicher. Along with us today are many of the members of the investigation and prosecution team responsible for the case that I'm about to discuss. We're here today to announce the unsealing of a 13-count indictment charging George Norcross with leading a criminal enterprise, of which his 5 co-defendants in this case, along with several unindicted co-conspirators, were allegedly members. The state alleges that defendants George Norcross, Philip Norcross, William Tambusi, the former mayor of Camden, Dana Red, Sidney Brown, and John O'Donnell committed the crime of first-degree racketeering conspiracy, among other offenses, to further the purposes of the Norcross enterprise. Let me be clear. With respect to the conduct I'm about to describe, the allegations in the indictment are merely allegations, and the defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. The city of Camden, once a booming industrial and manufacturing hub, has long suffered economic decline. The great hope for Camden to regain its stature as a thriving city was the revitalization of its waterfront. With sweeping views of Philadelphia, the abandoned industrial sites along the Camden waterfront had the potential to serve as the city's salvation. But as the state alleges, the Norcross enterprise manipulated government programs and processes designed to attract development and investment to instead suit their own financial desires, instead of contributing to the successes of the city of Camden. Through a series of criminal acts alleged in the state's case, the Norcross enterprise took the Camden waterfront all for themselves. As George Norcross himself allegedly said, quote, "This is for our friends," end quote. From at least as early as 2012 through the present, the state alleges that the Norcross enterprise used its power and influence over government officials to craft legislation tailored to serve the interests of the Norcross enterprise. And with the cooperation of former mayor of Camden, Dana Redd, they co-opted the Camden city government to aid the Norcross enterprise in obtaining property and property rights along the Camden waterfront through coercion, extortion, and other criminal acts. I will go through a series of these alleged acts now, but I encourage you to read the entire indictment, which runs 111 pages and which was unsealed this morning. Among the several criminal acts outlined and alleged in the state's indictment is the Norcross Enterprise's unlawful intervention in the purchase of the L3 complex by a nonprofit redevelopment organization. This complex, consisting of two three-story buildings and surface parking depicted in the image to my far left, was identified as the only suitable location for Cooper Health, for which George Norcross served as chair of the Board of Trustees. Before George Norcross learned that the nonprofit organization was actively seeking to purchase L3, the Camden Mayor's Office directed the nonprofit's leaders to meet regularly with Philip Norcross and then to update the Norcross enterprise of its progress in the deal. Philip Norcross is and was a lawyer in private practice who did not hold elected office or any governmental position within the city of Camden. It is alleged that he stated during a recorded conversation that, quote, "I try to practice as little law as possible. Just for laughs and giggles, I run a law firm. And for more laughs and giggles, my siblings and I get around the table and decide what George's agenda is in Camden," end quote. At the direction of city government officials, the nonprofit's leaders met regularly with Philip Norcross and were pressured to follow the directions of the Norcross enterprise or else face repercussions. As alleged in the indictment, as a result of the actions of the Norcross enterprise, rather than partnering with the developer of their choosing and earning expected millions of dollars from the transaction and then sharing in future profits from its intended ownership of the L3 complex, the nonprofit instead partnered with the developer selected for them by the Norcross enterprise and received a mere net of approximately $125,000 in the transaction. The developer chosen by the Norcross enterprise, on the other hand, was able to obtain the L3 complex at a discounted price only available to the nonprofit. And then Cooper Health gained an ownership interest in L3, it moved into the L3 complex, and it's collected over $27 million in state tax credits from 2016 to 2022, thanks to legislation that the Norcross enterprise helped craft. Legislation that we allege Philip Norcross described in his own words during a recorded conversation as follows, quote, "We rewrote a tax credit law in New Jersey that says, in essence, if you come to Camden, we're going to give you 100% tax credit for all capital and related costs. It will cause real havoc. It's unlimited," end quote. Through another series of extortionate and other unlawful acts alleged in the indictment made public earlier today, the Norcross enterprise forced a private developer who had once been courted by the city of Camden to invest in the redevelopment of its waterfront. It forced them to relinquish the property rights so that the Norcross enterprise could build the tallest building on the Camden waterfront, and the headquarters of the company is run by three of the defendants in this case, the Triad 1828 Center, as well as a residential apartment building known as 11 Cooper. When the developer would not initially relinquish his rights on terms preferred by the Norcross enterprise, George Norcross threatened the developer that he would in substance and in part, quote, F you up like you've never been effed up before, end quote. And he told the victim developer that he would make sure that the developer would never do business in Camden again. As alleged in the indictment, in a later recorded phone call, George Norcross admitted to threatening the developer and recalled a conversation with the victim developer asking Norcross, quote, are you threatening me, end quote. To which George Norcross responded, quote, absolutely, end quote. In addition to George Norcross's direct threats, the Norcross enterprise conspired to have the Camden Redevelopment Agency file a court action to take the extraordinary step of government condemnation of the victim developer's rights in order to gain leverage in their private negotiations. They did this without meaningful involvement from the city or even attempting to follow the legal process that protects against the government arbitrarily taking someone's property. The Norcross enterprise plotted to have Camden city officials publicly accuse the developer of being, quote, not a reputable person. The Norcross enterprise caused Camden city officials, including Mayor Dana Redd, to freeze out the victim developer by stopping all communications with him. And the Norcross enterprise plotted to use the Camden government to damage an unrelated project in which the victim developer was already heavily invested, which George Norcross allegedly described on a recorded call as, quote, another point of attack on this putz, end quote. As alleged in the indictment, that is a plan that the Norcross enterprise later executed to further harm the developer. All of these acts were used to, as George Norcross allegedly said on a recorded call, put a quote-unquote bat over the victim developer's head. The plan worked. As a result of the Norcross enterprise's actions and fearful of the financial harm he would suffer as a result of George Norcross's control over the city of Camden, the developer victim eventually gave in, and for $1.95 million, a fraction of what the victim believed his rights to be worth, the victim developer agreed to, 1, extinguish a view easement that enhanced the value of his other Camden investment, which then allowed for the eventual height of Norcross Enterprises' Triad 1828 Center. Today, that building stands 150 feet above what would have been permitted under the victim's easement. 2, the victim developer sold his residential right of first refusal and residential redevelopment rights and property, including permits and architectural plans. 3, he sold $18 million worth of tax credits that could be redeemed by the Norcross enterprise following the development of the 11 Cooper site. By contrast, the Norcross enterprise greatly benefited from this transaction. For example, the indictment alleges the following benefits for the defendants. On the very same date that the victim developer agreed to the sale, the insurance firm of Connor Strong and Bucklew, where defendant George Norcross serves as executive chair, the trucking and logistics company of NFI, where defendant Sidney Brown serves as CEO, and the Michaels Organization, a residential development company led by defendant John O'Donnell, each filed tax credits under a government tax incentive program tailored by and for the Norcross enterprise. In the application, they proposed to construct what would eventually become their headquarters, the Triad 1828 Center. 5 months later, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority announced tax credit awards of approximately $86.2 million for Connor Strong, approximately $79.3 million for Michaels, and approximately $79.3 million for NFI to construct the Triad 1828 Center. The Triad 1828 Center was then constructed over the years that followed and is owned by Camden Partners Tower Equities, an entity comprised of LLCs associated with defendants George Norcross, Sidney Brown, and John O'Donnell. The Triad 1828 Center was then occupied by only 3 companies who leased the space: Norcross's Connor Strong, Brown's NFI, and O'Donnell's Michaels. For leasing space in the Triad 1828 Center, the 3 companies have received a total of at least $29 million in tax credits. The companies have been able to turn around and sell those tax credits for millions of dollars. And between the 3 companies, they have approximately $211 million more in tax credits to be awarded through the end of calendar year 2030. In addition, thanks to the victim developer giving up his residential right of first refusal, an entity owned by George Norcross, John O'Donnell, and Sidney Brown was able to construct the 11 Cooper residential building and obtain more than $3.5 million in tax credits to date. In addition to the aforementioned criminal acts, the 111-page indictment unsealed today details other criminal acts members of the Norcross enterprise conspired to commit in order to further the purposes of the enterprise. The alleged objects and purposes of the Norcross enterprise included, but were not limited to, the following: preserving and enhancing the power, reputation, and profits of the Norcross enterprise, protecting and promoting the reputation and political power of the leader of the enterprise, George Norcross, by, among other means, controlling access to the local political party apparatus, directing appointments to government positions, and using influence and control over government agencies to cause opponents to lose government contracts. Enriching and rewarding the Norcross enterprise members and allies through political endorsements, appointments to public positions, influencing government contracts, and placement in lucrative private sector jobs. Influencing the New Jersey legislature to pass legislation to increase tax credit awards for projects in Camden and advance the interests of the Norcross enterprise. Concealing, misrepresenting, and hiding the illegal operation of the Norcross enterprise and acts done in furtherance of the enterprise from the public, from law enforcement, and from the media. Promoting compliance with the demands of the Norcross enterprise by retaliating against those opposed to the enterprise. And using the Norcross enterprise's reputation for controlling government entities to intimidate and threaten those who hold interests and rights that the Norcross enterprise seeks to acquire or extinguish. In short, this indictment alleges that a group of unelected private businessmen used their power and influence to get government at the state and local levels to aid their criminal enterprise and further its interests. Through their alleged acts, the Norcross enterprise was able to obtain the rights to build multiple buildings and obtain hundreds of millions of dollars in government-issued tax credits, among other benefits. They allegedly did this with the complicity and acquiescence of various state and local elected and appointed officials, who turned a blind eye to their duties and obligations to the people of New Jersey to instead serve the interests of a powerful few. The state alleges that George Norcross has been running a criminal enterprise in the state for at least the last 12 years. This alleged conduct of the Norcross enterprise has caused great harm to individuals, businesses, nonprofits, the people of the state of New Jersey, and especially to the city of Camden and its residents. That stops today. With this indictment, the state of New Jersey intends to hold the Norcross enterprise accountable for the crimes alleged to have been committed by its members. It's often said that in New Jersey, politics is a blood sport. And what's meant by that is that if you don't go along with the demands of those in political power, you'll get hurt. You might lose your job, you might lose your business, maybe you lose your reputation, or maybe government, the very government that you vote for, that you support with your tax dollars, that exists to serve you, will instead be weaponized against you. All of these consequences are on full display in this indictment. But there is nothing inherent in our state's culture that requires us to accept politics and government that functions in this way. And as we show clearly in this indictment, there's nothing legal about it either. Now, as Attorney General, I have the great privilege of working every day with the career public servants who make up the Department of Law and Public Safety. The team involved in investigating and prosecuting this case exemplifies the dedication and selflessness at the foundational core of what it means to be in public service. I cannot recognize everyone involved with this investigation individually, but I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank a few individuals integral to the investigation and prosecution of this matter. This team has been led by Executive Director of the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, Drew Skinner, as well as founding and outgoing Director of OPIA, Tom Eicher. He's been incredibly instrumental in supporting the team as my first assistant, Lindsay Rotolo. And I want to thank the prosecution team, led by Deputy Director Michael Breslin, Assistant Attorneys General Andrew Wellbrook and Michael Grillo, Deputy Attorney General Adam Klein and Amanda Nini, as well as the entire investigation team, and specifically FBI Special Agents Steve Rich and Ethan Johnson, Sergeant Aaron Bancroft, Detective Ryan Vivarelli, and State Investigator Paul Donahue of OPIA, Detective Sergeant Ryan Gillespie of the New Jersey State Police under the leadership of Colonel Patrick Callahan, Superintendent of the State Police. I also wish to acknowledge the contributions of others in the department, and especially the assistance provided by the Division of Criminal Justice, led by Director Stephen Furketic, Deputy Director Derek Neseskis, Chief Weldon Powell, OPIA investigator John Zudik, and the many appellate attorneys involved in this matter. The team's devotion to the pursuit of justice and fearlessness in holding power to account is admirable. I would also like to thank the Federal Bureau of Investigations, both the Newark Field Office under the leadership of Special Agent in Charge James Dennehy, and the Field Office in Philadelphia under the leadership of SAC Wayne Jacobs. We are so grateful for the investigative collaboration in this case, and specifically the invaluable time and talents of the agents who worked on this case and the support of their supervisors. We're also grateful for the assistance provided by the United States Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania under the leadership of U.S. Attorney Jacqueline Romero, as well as special thanks to First Assistant Nelson Thayer, and to the United States Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey under the leadership of U.S. Attorney Philip Selinger. The prior legal and investigative work done by the Assistant United States Attorneys in their offices has been critical to our team's ability to hold the defendants accountable for alleged criminal conduct that spans more than a decade. This region's law enforcement community is unlike any other in the nation. The investigative and prosecutorial agencies in this state and in this region are devoted to the mission of pursuing justice and preserving public safety, and we support each other's cases in the process. I'm so grateful for the collaboration we encountered in this case, just as we do in every case we undertake here in New Jersey. I also want to acknowledge that law enforcement officers and prosecutors who investigate powerful people and people who violate the public trust often are unfairly scrutinized and criticized by the very people they're charged with investigating. These are people with access to government officials and influence over the media. It turns out that powerful people don't like being held accountable, and they use these attacks to try to deter us from doing this work. We see this every day on the national stage, and sadly, we see it here in New Jersey. But this department is built on a history of doing this work. It is in our DNA. The Division of Criminal Justice was created by the Criminal Justice Act of 1970, and it was created specifically so that the state of New Jersey had an agency capable of investigating and prosecuting complex criminal conspiracies perpetrated by powerful individuals. I am inspired by the public servants who do this work, this tireless, grueling, often thankless work that involves sacrifice and commitment to a righteous cause, no matter who it may offend. Today, these individuals have shown that the legacy of that founding law is alive and well in the state of New Jersey. And I want the women and men of the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability to know that I support them and that the state of New Jersey thanks them. The team that worked on this case consists of some of the finest public servants I have ever known, and I could not be prouder of them. So let today be a lesson for everyone in this state. We will never back down from doing the hard work necessary to do the right thing for the right reasons. We will never stop pursuing justice. When we say no one is above the law, we mean it. And we will continue to hold accountable anyone who violates the law to serve their interests above the public interests, no matter how powerful they may be. It's now my pleasure to turn over to Drew Skinner, Executive Director of the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, to provide additional details on this case.
Thank you, Attorney General Platkin. Before I begin, I want to briefly echo the general sentiments and thank the career prosecutors and agents working on this case for their incredible commitment to seeking justice in this matter. It's an honor to work alongside each and every one of you. I also want to thank and acknowledge Executive Director Tom Eicher, who's about to retire after an exemplary career of public service. I thank you for your leadership of this team. And more generally, I thank you for your work founding the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, which I'm proud to lead today. I also share the Attorney General's gratitude towards our colleagues in the FBI and the United States Attorney's offices for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania and the District of New Jersey. Today's charges are truly the result of an outstanding collaborative team effort. I want to spend the next few minutes walking you through the charges contained in the indictment unsealed today. As General Platkin has already told you, the criminal enterprise that we have identified today is alleged to be led by George Norcross, who currently resides in the state of Florida. He is the executive chairman of the insurance firm Connor, Strong, and Bucklew, and chairman of the Board of Trustees for Cooper Health. Also charged are members of the Norcross enterprise, defendants Philip Norcross, an attorney and the managing shareholder and CEO of Parker McKay, a New Jersey law firm. Philip Norcross also serves on the board of Cooper Health and is the registered agent for the groups that own the Triad 1828 Center. He is a resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Defendant William Tambusi is an attorney and partner at the law firm of Brown and Connery. He is the longtime personal attorney to George Norcross. From 1989 to present, he also served as counsel to the Camden County Democratic Committee, which George Norcross chaired from 1989 to 1995. Tambusi has also served as outside counsel to the City of Camden, the Camden Redevelopment Agency, Cooper Health, and Connor Strong. He is a resident of Brigantine, New Jersey. Defendant Dana Redd is currently the CEO of Camden Community Partnership, which was formerly Cooper's Ferry Partnership. She previously served as a member of the Camden City Council, the New Jersey Senate, and from 2010 to 2018, she was mayor of Camden. She is a resident of Sicklerville, New Jersey. Defendant Sidney Brown is the CEO of NFI, a trucking and logistics company. He also serves as a member of the board at Cooper Health and is a partner in the groups that own 11 Cooper and the Triad 1828 Center, among other things. He is a resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Defendant John O'Donnell has been in the executive leadership of the Michaels Organization, a residential development company, in a variety of roles, including COO, president, and CEO. He is also a partner in the groups that own 11 Cooper and the Triad 1828 Center. He has also served on the board of Cooper's Ferry Partnership at various times since 2018. He is a resident of Newtown, Pennsylvania. The indictment unsealed today contains 13 counts. Count 1 charges all 6 defendants with a first-degree racketeering conspiracy in violation of NJSA 2C41-2D. The pattern of racketeering activity alleged by the state includes violations of the Federal Hobbs Act, theft by extortion, financial facilitation of criminal activity, misconduct by corporate official, and conspiracy to commit these crimes. Count 2 charges defendants George Norcross, Philip Norcross, Dana Redd, and William Tambusi with first-degree conspiracy to commit theft by extortion, criminal coercion, financial facilitation, misconduct by corporate official, and official misconduct in connection with allegations related to the L3 complex. Count 3 charges all 6 defendants with first-degree conspiracy to commit theft by extortion, criminal coercion, financial facilitation, misconduct by a corporate official, and official misconduct in connection with allegations related to the Triad 1828 Center and 11 Cooper. Count 4 charges defendants George Norcross, Philip Norcross, and William Tambusi with second-degree conspiracy to commit theft by extortion and criminal coercion in connection with allegations related to the Radio Lofts building. Counts 5 and 6 charge all 6 defendants with first-degree financial facilitation of criminal activity in connection with allegations related to the tax credits from the Triad 1828 Center. Counts 7 and 8 charge George Norcross, Philip Norcross, Dana Redd, and William Tambusi with first-degree financial facilitation of criminal activity in connection with allegations related to the tax credits from the L3 complex. Counts 9 and 10 charge all 6 defendants with first-degree financial facilitation of criminal activity in connection with allegations related to the tax credits from the 11 Cooper residential development. Count 11 charges defendants George Norcross, Philip Norcross, William Tambusi, and Dana Redd with second-degree misconduct by a corporate official in connection with allegations related to the Norcross's enterprise's control and operation of Cooper Health to promote the enterprise's criminal objects. Count 12 charges all 6 defendants with second-degree misconduct by a corporate official in connection with allegations related to the Norcross enterprise's control and operation of Connor, Strong, and Bucklew, NFI, the Michaels Organization, and entities called CP Residential GSGZ and CPT equities in the furtherance and promotion of the enterprise's criminal objects. Finally, count 13 charges all 6 defendants with second-degree official misconduct in connection with allegations related to Dana Red's actions while she served as mayor of the city of Camden, and accomplice liability for the same. As a reminder, the assertions made in the indictment unsealed today are allegations, and all criminal defendants are presumed innocent until convicted by proof beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. The potential penalties for these charges are significant and are as follows. First-degree charges carry a sentence of 10 to 20 years in state prison and a fine of up to $200,000. Second-degree charges carry a sentence of 5 to 10 years in state prison and a fine of $150,000. The crime of racketeering also exposes criminal defendants to additional financial penalties, including the forfeiture of ill-gotten proceeds from their criminal activity, which, as the indictment makes clear, the state intends to seek in this case. The offense of official misconduct exposes a defendant who is a public official convicted of a crime relating to her office with a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 5 years if convicted. While today's indictment marks an important culmination of a years-long investigation, this is only one of the many cases my office is handling. Every day, we at the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability work with our law enforcement partners across the state to root out corruption and criminal activities that create distrust in government institutions and harm the communities we are sworn to protect and serve. Again, I'm so grateful for the work of this team and the many members of my office. And I am grateful to General Plotkin and First Assistant Rotolo for their leadership in and support of this important work. Attorney General, I turn it back to you.
Hey, everybody, as I said earlier, we're going to take a couple of questions from the press. Andrew?
Mr. Attorney General, two-part question. One, before just getting into some of the specifics of the indictment, what do you make of Mr. Norcross's presence in this room today and sitting here? And second, we have you alleged conduct dating back, I think, to 2012. Number of government agencies, public officials, private citizens, developers. How many conspirators, indicted and undicted, do you allege were involved in this period of activity?
No comment on the first question. On the second, I refer you to the indictment, which again is 111 pages and lays out the full list of the conduct that we're charging.
Nancy?
Attorney General, you started out talking about the L3 deal and the fact that nonprofit developers were muscled out of that deal. The documents that detail the fight of that are connected to John Sheridan. He was involved in trying to fight off that deal, and John Sheridan, those documents were found on the dining room table the morning after he was murdered. What is your office looking into that case, and how do you see the murder of John and Joyce Sheridan is connected to this conspiracy you laid out today?
I don't have any update on any of the other or any unrelated case to this. So unfortunately, nothing more to add there.
Jeff?
Is this the universe of indictments that you expect, or do you expect to see other unindicted co-conspirators? Do you expect this investigation to continue, or is this the end that we go forward with prosecution?
Our work always continues, and if new evidence comes to light, we will not hesitate to bring additional charges.
I think we're good. We're going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Oh, Tracy? Take one more.
Voice recordings. Does the indictment explain, because I haven't taken a look at it yet, like how long were you on with the wire, or was it for long?
I'm not going to go into the means and methods of the investigation, but the indictment, I'll refer you to the indictment, Tracy, that lays out the recordings that we're talking about. Thank you.
So most of the questions that you guys are answering are in the indictment.
You've been
copies of which
listening
are in the
to
back
On
of the
New
room.
Jersey's
They're
coverage
also available
of a
online.
press
Like we said, most of the
conference
questions
just wrapping up in
aren't going to
Trenton
be able to
by
be
the
answered
state's
today.
attorney general was
if you
alleging that a Democratic power broker, George Norcross, ran a criminal enterprise, and he has been charged and indicted on 13 separate charges. Again, George Norcross III, one of the most powerful political figures in the state of New Jersey. His brother, Donald Norcross, is a sitting member of Congress. The Attorney General is alleging that Norcross used threats, quote, I'm quoting here, threats of fear and economic reputational harm to obtain lucrative property rights along the Camden waterfront and influencing legislation that came with bankable tax breaks for Norcross's business and the nonprofit that he ran, Cooper University Healthcare System. The charges, again, were announced just moments ago by New Jersey's Attorney General Matt Plankin at a press conference this afternoon. There have been 6 people indicted overall. 13-count indictment includes threats to upend the political power structure in New Jersey, in South Jersey, that Norcross has led for 3-4 decades, and will no doubt lead into next year's legislative primaries. Also charged were his brother, Philip Norcross, who runs the a law firm, Dana Red, a former state senator and Camden mayor, Norcross's attorney, and Bill Tambusi, John O'Donnell, the president of the Michaels Organization, and a real estate developer with ties to Norcross, Sidney Brown, the CEO of NFI, a trucking company and business partner of Norcross Associates. They were all indicted. Again, I'm quoting from some of the indictment. It's 111 pages in all. The Attorney General said, quote, the abandoned industrial sites along the Camden waterfront had the potential to serve as the city's salvation. But as the state alleges, Norcross Enterprise manipulated government programs and processes designed to attract development and investment to the state to instead suit their own financial desires instead of contributing to the successes of the city of Camden. Through a series of criminal acts alleged in this case, the Norcross Enterprise took the Camden waterfront all for themselves. Again, this is something that is still developing. There were some questions taken by the press. Some of this investigation goes back to 2012. Numerous government agencies were mentioned in this. There were public, private citizens. When asked about if there were more co-conspirators, the Attorney General said, please refer to this 113-page indictment for more. Interesting to note that George Norcross himself attended the press conference. According to some reports, he was asked to leave. He did not. He sat there the whole time. The Attorney General was asked, hey, what are your thoughts on Norcross actually attending this event? He said, no comment on that. Again, this indictment, we are still sifting our way through. Very much a bombshell in New Jersey's political world. But reading through some of it, it alleges that Norcross threatened a developer who owned property that he needed to build the tallest building along the waterfront, known as the Triad 1828 Center. Again, I'm quoting here, quote, when the developer would not relinquish his rights on terms preferred by Norcross, he threatened the developer that he would, in substance and in part, expletive you up like you've never been expletive up before. And he told the developer he would make sure the developer never did business in Camden again, the indictment reads. Recorded phone call, Norcross later admitted to threatening the developer. He said, this is unacceptable. If you do this, there will be enormous consequences. So again, the story is developing. George Norcross himself attending the press conference. When it comes to the investigation, it is still ongoing. 13 counts in all, 16 people named. The Attorney General said, of course, people are innocent, guilty. These degrees, the first, second degree charges, first degree, could carry 10 to 20 years in state prison, plus financial punitive issues. And then the second could be 5 to 10 years. And there are also racketeering charges as well. So stay with On New Jersey as we continue our coverage and continue to look in this bombshell indictment of South Jersey power broker George Norcross III. I'm Laura Jones. Stay with us.